Good evening. There is a moment, and every journalist who has covered conflict knows it, when the floor drops out. When the story you have been told, that has been reinforced, sanitized, sold to you with confidence and certainty, shatters. And what replaces it is not nuance, it is danger. Tonight is that moment. Because 4 American aircraft have been struck in 72 hours by Iranian air defenses, and the official narrative, the one about dominance, about control, about a crippled adversary, has just been exposed as a house of cards. This is not a story about metal and missiles. This is a story about a trap that is closing, a strategy that is unraveling, and a reckoning that cannot be postponed. Let's go. Over the past 3 days, in a stretch of sky above the Persian Gulf, 4 United States military aircraft have been struck by air defense systems operated by the Islamic Republic of Iran. Not threatened, not buzzed, struck. An MQ-9 Reaper, the workhorse of American persistent surveillance and precision strike. An FA-18 Super Hornet, the backbone of carrier-based combat air power. An RQ-21 Blackjack. A Scan Eagle. 4 different platforms, 4 different missions, 4 different altitudes. One common thread. Each was engaged by Iranian systems that the United States military previously assessed as suppressed, degraded, or destroyed. That assessment was wrong. And the consequences of being wrong in this environment are measured not in press releases, but in lives. To understand how catastrophic this is, you need to understand the narrative that preceded it. Just weeks ago, senior officials stood before cameras and declared, in no uncertain terms, that Iranian aerial retaliation had been effectively neutralized. The back was broken. Air supremacy was unchallenged. The message to allies was reassurance. The message to Tehran was finality. That narrative was not incidental. It was the foundation of an entire strategic posture. It justified the pace of operations. It shaped the rules of engagement. It informed every calculation about risk. And it was built on intelligence that has now been revealed as dangerously stale. Here is what happened. The MQ-9 Reaper was operating at high altitude over the Gulf of Oman, a routine intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance mission. It was brought down by a modified surface-to-air missile system that Iranian forces have been quietly refining for months. Not a lucky shot, a doctrinal innovation. A system designed specifically to counter the flight profiles and electronic signatures of American drones. The FA-18 was on combat air patrol when it was damaged by a proximity detonation of a medium-range missile. The pilot survived. The jet made an emergency landing. It should never have been in that position. The RQ-21 and the Scan Eagle were lost within 6 hours of each other, swept from the sky by layered defenses that were supposed to have been dismantled. 4 strikes, 72 hours. And the question that should terrify every decision-maker in Washington is not just how this happened, it is what comes next. Because here is the revelation that transforms this from a tactical embarrassment into a strategic crisis. These 4 strikes were not defensive. They were not reactive. According to signals intelligence and intercepted communications reviewed by multiple outlets, these engagements were choreographed. They were part of a live-fire operation designed to probe, to test, to map. Iran was not lashing out. Iran was learning. Each strike was calibrated below the threshold that would trigger a full American military response. Each one was designed to measure something specific. How fast does the US detect the launch? How quickly does the political leadership authorize a response? What platforms are used for retaliation? What is the scale? What is the ceiling? In effect, Tehran has been running an experiment on the American decision-making cycle, and the early data, from their perspective, may be deeply encouraging. Think about what that means. The most powerful military on Earth is being used as a live test subject by an adversary that is studying its patterns, its assumptions, its political constraints. Iran is not trying to win a dogfight with the United States Air Force. It is trying to win a longer game. It is trying to make every flight hour so costly, so uncertain, so politically fraught that the calculus of sustained operations becomes untenable. That is not desperation. That is strategy. And it is working. Now let us talk about why this matters beyond the theater. This is not an abstraction. This is not a distant war with distant consequences. Every decision made in the next 72 hours will ripple through your life. There is the human cost. American pilots, drone operators, intelligence analysts, maintenance crews, real people with families, operating under rules of engagement that may have been overtaken by reality on the ground. Their safety depends on leadership that is honest about what it knows and what it does not. There is the economic dimension. The Strait of Hormuz handles roughly 20% of the world's oil. Every escalation in that corridor sends a shockwave through energy markets, through gas prices, through the cost of every good that moves on a truck or a ship. Stability in that waterway is not a luxury. It is the artery of the global economy, and there is the dimension of trust. When official statements declare a threat neutralized and the evidence shows 4 aircraft struck in 3 days, the gap between rhetoric and reality does not just damage a policy, it damages faith in the institutions that are supposed to protect us. That erosion is a vulnerability, and adversaries exploit vulnerabilities. So where does this leave us? The Pentagon is now facing questions that cannot be deferred. Are current rules of engagement adequate to protect American assets and personnel in an environment where the adversary has demonstrated a capacity to learn and adapt faster than anticipated? Is the pace of operations sustainable given the new threat landscape? And how do you align public messaging with operational truth when the strategic imperative is to project strength, but the tactical reality demands humility? These are not academic questions, they are urgent, because the next engagement is not a matter of if, it is a matter of when. And there is a deeper reckoning here, one that extends beyond this conflict. The era of unchallenged American air dominance is not over, but it is evolving. Adversaries have invested heavily in asymmetric capabilities, layered air defense, drone swarms, cyber disruption, electronic warfare. They have studied our doctrine, our technology, our patterns. They have built strategies around the assumption that they cannot match us head-on, so they will make every operation expensive, every mission uncertain, every hour in contested airspace a gamble. That is the new reality. And 4 struck aircraft are not just a tactical setback. They are a signal that the cost calculus is shifting. The temptation in moments like this is to demand retaliation, to insist on a visible, dramatic response that restores the narrative of dominance. But escalation in this environment is not a simple equation. Every strike invites a counterstrike. Every response is observed, measured, catalogued by an adversary that is actively learning from it. The most dangerous move may be the predictable one. The most powerful action may be the one that confounds expectations. Strategic patience is not weakness, it is discipline. And it requires a public that understands the difference between courage and theatre. Tonight, 4 aircraft are gone or damaged. The pilots who survived are being debriefed. The intelligence community is scrambling to reassess. The political leadership is calculating its next move. And in Tehran, analysts are poring over the data, refining their models, preparing for the next probe. The story is not over, it is accelerating. And the question that should keep us all awake is not just what happens next in the sky above the Persian Gulf. It is whether the people making decisions about that sky are operating with clear eyes and honest assessments, or whether they are still performing in a narrative that the battlefield has already left behind. The measure of a nation's security is not the number of aircraft in its arsenal. It is the integrity of the thinking that sends them into harm's way. That is the standard. That is the stakes. And that is the work that cannot wait. Good night.